Her mood is down. She's feeling numb. She's feeling hopeless. I believe at the very end of the month, she told me she had suicidal ideation every day for a month.
She sent me a text message.
I'm really sick. Something is wrong. I had horrible insomnia all night, and I just don't know how I'm going to get through the day. I started taking the medicine my doctor prescribed for anxiety, and I think it's made things worse. It's just really scary, and I don't want to be alone.
A testimony yesterday from the mother and sister of a Massachusetts woman accused of killing her 3 young children. Lindsay Clancy's murder trial is back underway today, with the defense calling more witnesses. The prosecution rested its case yesterday, and testimony had to be stopped at least once as Clancy broke down in court.
Or it could be more developed types of injuries, such as bruising or abrasions. And what about injuries?
All right, Counsel, could... We're going to take a break this time, all right?
Important to remember, there are 3 children who are no longer here, but nevertheless, a GoFundMe page has been set up to help Clancy's parents and has raised over $900,000, with supporters saying they think Clancy is actually a victim. Now, somewhat bizarrely, in my view, messages of support have poured in from across the U.S. and from as far away as Poland, Australia, Ireland, and France. Look, Jeremy, that is a part of this story, no doubt, but I want to be very clear about what happened here. The husband's testimony said he came home, there was blood everywhere. The bedroom door was locked. He knew something was wrong. He goes to the basement when emergency responders arrive. He sees his 5-year-old dead first. He then sees his 8-month-old. He then sees his 3-year-old with exercise ropes around their neck. I think these details are important. This story makes my stomach churn, but those details seem to be lost on some.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's a gut-wrenching story, and I think it's important that we do say the details. What's interesting is that the case has actually kind of unlocked a real kind of debate online. A lot of people across the country are kind of weighing in on and there are different camps. You know, some camp, some on each side, kind of the extremes. Some saying that, well, she was in this kind of state of psychosis, so that, she should get away with all of this, which I think is one extreme. Another extreme is folks online who, say that this is the idea of postpartum depression or anything like that is totally made up. And I think that what's important is that even if you aren't, for those of us who aren't actually involved in this case, the way we talk about it, and specifically to talk about new moms and those who struggle with postpartum depression, and as we kind of have this discussion that's going on, that we have to talk about it in a compassionate and loving way. And I think that for those online who are attacking new moms, saying that this is all made up and that you just don't care about your children, I think that's wrong, especially coming from other Christian pro-life men like myself who are saying this. I think it's important that we should have a discussion about this case, but it does not mean that we need to go attacking moms across the country about how they are handling postpartum issues.
And she was given a ton of medication, and a number of things can be true all at one time, that she shouldn't have been given that medication, that she was dealing with postpartum psychosis. And Emily, I was reading about the Andrea Yates case from the early 2000s in Houston, Texas. A mother drowned her 5 children. She was found not guilty in that case. There's also a point to say that people do have agency, and it is, in my view, a dangerous precedent if people across the country just get off after killing their child.
I hear what you're saying. The immense volume that you are looking at on your screen right now of her medication history is horrifying. It's also completely contraindicated in all types of medical standards. There is nothing about this list that a woman with postpartum depression should have been taking. And we see this with our veterans. They are over-medicated. They succumb to the pharmaceutical industry because authorities tell them to, and they are blatantly over-medicated with zero regard from the authorities' point of view of how those medications react to each other. 3 children are not here. I totally hear what you're saying, but I feel such compassion for her. It is, I agree, heart-wrenching. Her misery is profound. She tried to kill herself after that. She is sad that she's alive. She pled for help to her mother, to the doctors, to her husband in those text messages. That was her mother reading that. She shared with her mother that she had these horrifying thoughts about violence toward her children. She said, please help me. So this person asked for help a million times, and the people that wouldn't help her are the people that were controlling her medication. And I will point this out too, that we just covered the very sad and untimely death of Hayden Panettiere. And she said that after 10 years of working with Neutrogena, when she dared to be open and honest about discussing postpartum depression during an interview with someone else, that Neutrogena dropped her because that somehow was antithetical to their imaging. That is horrific. If in this country we are not open and okay with talking about the very real presence of postpartum, and I don't know, I'm not an expert, but at least to talk about it and not to damn a woman who dared to speak about it from her endorsement and potentially damn this woman. I'm not in the jury box, but these are what stuck out to me.
Yes, and not every situation is equivocal here and the same. But Harris, I would say Hayden Panettiere made the choice, and she said it was a devastating choice to give up custody of her child because of things that she was dealing with. And I think that's a choice she got derided for. She should be commended in many ways for making what is a very difficult choice amid her struggles.
Well, one thing that this case is doing, and you mentioned Andrea Yates as well, and I can think of Susan Smith, although that was not, a case of postpartum depression. But just in terms of taking your own children's lives, is it puts it in front and center what's happening with people, and perhaps mental health is something that we as a society have to take a different type of a look at. So if postpartum is some that you, and I don't know what's in your algorithms, but you're seeing a lot of people who say that they don't believe this is true. I'm seeing a lot from moms who say, I got this too, and it was long after the birth, because with Lindsay Clancy, it was some 5 months later. So some doctors have even said, no, that's beyond. In fact, in this trial, in the court case, we aired that a little bit last hour, have said, no, that's beyond the scope of when it would start postpartum and all sorts of things. Well, look, if we're talking about it, maybe we can help. So I want to be a part of what makes a difference. National Maternal Mental Health Hotline is free, confidential, and 24 hours a day. 833-TLC-MAMA. 833-852-6262 is the numeric equivalency to TLC-MAMA. And it's up in my socials as well. I don't think that this case will help us to find all the answers as we talk about it outside the case. But that woman, after taking the lives of her beautiful babies, jumped out of a second-story window and was left paralyzed. And we will never know, perhaps, all the things that led up to it, but we know she was on 13 medications. And to your point, Emily, what was going on behind the scenes as they were trying to treat her? And to your point, we have agency. Do not kill. It's on God's short list of 10 things.
Yeah, but
so it's complicated.
When you have, a host of people in society saying, well, there's nothing wrong with you, and they don't listen to her because postpartum depression isn't real. Well, for someone who's calling the suicide hotline, someone who checks themselves into a psychiatric facility, she was there for 5 days. She didn't see a doctor for 3 of them, and that was in January. That was early January. She killed her kids at the end of January. And, this is someone who told, to Emily's point, she told her mom, she told her husband, I am not myself. These pills have robbed me of my personality. I am numb. Am I a sociopath? I want to harm the children. I want to kill myself. I think about killing myself every single day. And one of the biggest drivers of her anxiety was going back to work. It was the thought of not giving up her children, but being away from her children that, it set off this cascade that started with anxiety and it metastasized into this full-blown psychosis. She's not going to be free. She's not going to go have more kids. She's either going to be in a horrific psychiatric facility for the rest of her life or jail. But the point is what happened before the killings.
Yes.
All of that was ignored. And if you have not suffered from postpartum depression, and hopefully pray God, not postpartum psychosis, then consider yourself so incredibly lucky. But we do need to have so much more compassion for women in that condition so this doesn't keep happening.
All right, well, Cora, Dawson, Kayleigh Clancy, 5 years old, 3 years old, 8 months old. We know where they are now. They are with their Heavenly Father. We're outnumbered in just a moment.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.